What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now here behind me we got Project CB9, and we definitely have not forgotten about this car. And in today's episode we're going to be doing two things to it. So first things first, we need to go ahead and torque to spec the adjustable ball joint on the upper control arm on the front side of the car. So long story short, I took Project CB9 on the highway, and I don't drive the car on the highway very often, so they were doing some road work on the off-ramp. And once I hit that off-ramp, there was a road patch, and apparently they didn't do the best of job. So once I hit the road patch, I heard the loudest bang inside Project CB9, and the steering wheel was askew. I got the car home, and the tire was heavily cambered inside the wheel well. So we need to go ahead and take a look at that, see what's going on. I believe it's the upper control arm ball joint that came loose. And then second thing, we need to go ahead and do a do-it-yourself alignment. So I don't know what kind of results we're gonna have, but Project CB9 has always pulled to the right, and I got some bad inside tire wear since it came with some old tires on the BB6 Prelude wheels. So we're gonna be doing our best attempt to give this car an alignment ourselves, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do alignment as well. So hopefully things work out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on Project CB9. Okay, so taking a closer look at Project CB9, this is the specific wheel on the front driver's side that was knocked out when it hit that bump coming on the off ramp. So I'm not sure if you can see the angle from right here, but just check out how far cambered that front wheel and tire is. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and raise up the car, take off the wheel and tire, and I'm gonna show you in depth of what's going on with that upper control arm ball joint that's made by SPC. So that thing needs to be torqued to 120 foot-pounds, by the way. Okay, let's go ahead, jack up the car, pull the wheel and tire off, and let's get started. Okay, so Project CB9 safely jacked up and safely supported with 2 jack stands and wheel and tires removed. Let me show what's going on here. Oh, that's interesting. Check that out. It's like a mud bug made a home right there in the front calipers. Just kind of knocked that off right there. Yeah, we don't want to make this car home with bugs right there, so sorry guys, need to find another home. Anyways, we got coilovers on this car. Obviously Project CB9 has been lowered maybe 2 or 3 inches. I don't know the exact amount. But in order to lower the car, and you need to dial in the alignment, camber specifically, this is the adjustable SPC ball joint right here. So I don't know if you can see, but this ball joint actually slides outwards and inwards, depending if you want negative or positive camber. And there's a top nut right up here, and it's very hard to get to. I've got a flex wrench, but there's no way you can get a socket up there with a torque wrench. And that top nut needs to be torqued down to 120 foot-pounds. Now there's actually some people that actually drill a large hole, maybe 2 or 3 inches wide, on the shock tower in order to torque that nut. And I do not want to take that action right there. Okay, so my course of action is I'm gonna go ahead and take my camber gauge right here and stick it to the rotor. It's a magnetic camber gauge. If you can see that bubble right there, it kind of give you an idea of what kind of camber you're working with. But we want to go with a -1. You can go 0 if you like, but -1 will give you better handling. -2 is just too much, especially new tires. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and start loosening some of these items right here. And I think what I need to do is we need to go ahead and remove the upper control arm assembly from Project CB9. So I need to open up the hood, undo those 2 bolts that are in the engine bay, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this on the vise. And then once we have the correct camber, which is -1, dialed in, then I'm gonna go ahead, clamp this to the vise, and torque that top nut to 120 foot-pounds. And then we'll go ahead and reinstall it, and then reconnect the upper ball joint right here to the spindle itself. So that's the course of action of what we're doing with Project CB9 today. So we're gonna go ahead and do the other side as well, because I don't want this happening, driving this thing on the highway and running over some other bump. So you just never know what you're encountering on the roads. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my flex wrench, undo that top bolt, pull this thing out a little bit, and then I'm gonna be paying attention to my camber gauge right here. So once this camber gauge hits a -1 right there from where the position's at right now, that's where I wanna be at. And then we'll go ahead and start disassembling the top area right here of the upper control arm and the upper ball joint. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. I got my magnetic camera gauge stuck to the rotor itself, and I wanted to go back -1 more than it was. So it's looking good right there on the camera gauge. And then the tool that I'm using to actually tighten up that top nut on the adjustable ball joint is this 27mm wrench. So it's got a flex head. I think I picked this thing up from Amazon. I mean, this is an awkward size, 27mm. And obviously the flex head is very important. So let me show you how this thing actually mounts up there. But I don't know if you can see this cavity. I have to bend the head right there. Okay, so I've got the box end locked onto the top nut right there. Now if you can see what kind of angle I'm working with right here. So that upper ball joint nut, I mean, that's buried up there, you know, with this fender liner, and then there's sheet metal underneath that. So, I mean, this is just a very tricky nut to get to, especially if you have a lowered 4th gen Accord. Okay, and then taking a closer look at the engine bay, in order to remove that upper control arm, this nut right here needs to be removed, and there's a nut that's underneath this wiring harness. It is right there. I don't know if you can see it. But before we go ahead and remove the upper control arm, I'm gonna try something new here. Okay, so what my intention is, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this cotter pin and this nut. And I'm gonna go ahead and separate the ball joint from the spindle itself. And then what I wanna do is I wanna take the spindle, make it go forward or make it go backwards, and hopefully I can take this upper control arm and swing it downwards. And that will then expose the top nut, and then I can torque it to spec. And the torque spec is 120 foot-pounds. As you can see up here, there's no way I can get a socket and a torque wrench up there, so I want to go ahead and torque this thing down to factory specs, which is 120 foot-pounds. Okay, let me go ahead and separate the upper ball joint right here from the spindle, and we'll see what happens. Alrighty guys, let me give you an update. So I got the spindle separated from the upper control arm, and I went ahead and did that with my special ball joint tool, which actually doesn't damage the rubber boot right here. Anyways, instead of trying to pull this down, I'd have to actually loosen this bolt right there and this bolt right there, which I think is a 14mm, and then it can swing down. But taking a look, I think I've got enough clearance to actually stick my torque wrench in a shallow socket up there and actually provide enough tension. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that a shot before I go ahead and loosen those up, because I believe those are torqued to spec as well. But here's my torque wrench, and there's my shallow mount 27mm socket. You see how short that thing is? So I actually bought these specific sockets and these flex wrenches specifically for this upper ball joint. It's a pain in the butt, but it is what it is, you know, for a lowered Honda Accord. All right, so here's where we're at. Got the torque wrench set to 120 foot-pounds, got the shallow 27mm socket into position on top of the top nut. And I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can torque this to spec without having to drop down the upper control arm. So let me go ahead and give this a shot and see if we have success or not. All right, guys, after a few minutes, we finally got success. I set the torque wrench to 100 foot-pounds to make sure everything's working right, and then it clicked. Set the torque wrench to 120 foot-pounds, and sure enough, felt that thing click, and man, that's the best feeling in the world. So just keep in mind, make sure you use a shallow mount socket. So here's a regular socket, by the way, and you can see the difference right there. That's about an extra half, maybe 3/4 of an inch, so I don't think this socket would have worked too well, because as you can see, tolerance is very tight. up into this wheel well right there. Okay, so we can go ahead and button up the driver's side, go ahead and put the spindle back onto the upper ball joint, put the nut on, torque it to spec, and put the cotter pin in position. So we should be wrapped up, and fingers crossed that this upper ball joint does not shift over next time we hit a bump on the road. All right, guys, promise you're not gonna clown me on this, but check this out. So I'm trying to do a DIY alignment. So there's a guy on YouTube many years back, he did a string alignment. So basically take a string, go along the side of the vehicle, and you're gonna start taking measurements. So I've got 2 jack stands put in position with some thick string. Figured I'd go ahead and take care of this because I've got the front wheels and tires off, Project CB9, and I've got bad steering wheel pull right now. So the car is pulling off to the right, and I've got bad tire wear. So I know this car is off of alignment. So can't hurt to try. So this is no professional alignment by any means. Let me show you what's going on. Okay, so what we got here is I got the string, and in order to make sure this is straight, you wanna go ahead and take 2 measurements. One on the back side of the wheel. So you can see right there, almost 5 5/8. And then go ahead and try it on the front side of the back of the wheel. See where the string comes out. That's about 5 5/8. So it's kind of straight. Now remember, guys, this is no means of a laser alignment right here. So basically I want to go ahead and pay $100 plus for alignment because I'm still dialing the suspension in. So if we can get this thing close, you know, it's a win-win situation. So can't hurt to try. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I went ahead and took the front caliper off and the front brake pad on the outside because the measurement system I'm going to use is basically the rotor, because I don't want to be pulling the wheel and tire off all the time, because we need to go back here in the tie rod and there's a nut that we need to undo, and then actually the inner tie rod has a nut, I guess, built into it, and then you guys turn that thing in order to make this thing go out or in. So let's go ahead and take some measurements, see what we're working with here. Okay, so we're about 7.5 inches. Let's see what it looks like on the front side. It looks like it's about 7.5 inches right there as well. I'm not sure if I trust this too well, but I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can tighten the string up and get some better measurements, but you kind of get the idea. So let me go ahead and explain this real quick. So essentially, if you've got a higher measurement on this side right here, and you got a lower measurement, so essentially, you know, the wheel's facing like this, and you wanna make it like this. So you wanna go ahead and loosen up that tie rod and then pull it in. So equal measurements on the back of the rotor and the front of the rotor where the string's at. So that's basically the gist of this idea right here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play with this, see if I can, I don't know, make some adjustments, but you know, I got the steering wheel straight in Project CB9. As you can see right here, the steering wheel is dead straight, but when I drive this car, you know, the steering wheel, I've got to turn it a little bit towards the right by about, I don't know, 5 degrees or something. It just drives me nuts. So I like to have a straight steering wheel when I'm driving this car. But I want to go ahead and try this do-it-yourself alignment and see how this works, you know. Doesn't hurt to try, I guess. All right, guys, status update on this DIY alignment. So I went ahead and undid that bolt right there, and then I was actually turning this inner tie rod counterclockwise. All right, so essentially what was going on the driver's side front wheel is this was towed in a little bit too much. So that's basically gonna burn your tires up. So right now, taking some measurements right here. Now keep in mind, this is a string trick. So this is not gonna be laser accurate like a professional alignment, but we're just trying to get it close. So we got about 7.5 inches right there on the back side of the rotor. And then taking a measurement from the front side of the rotor. We also have 7.5 inches from the front side of the rotor. So I think the alignment toe in is good on the driver's side. So just keep in mind, it's a lot easier to do this with the wheel off, because you need to go ahead and make adjustments on that inner tie rod, and you don't want to be crawling underneath this car. So whenever you guys go and get alignment, they basically put on an alignment rack, and the alignment guy is actually underneath the car, you know, making the adjustment because it's on a lift. So we don't have a lift right here, but you know, I think this is the best method, you know, for a DIY alignment. So remember, don't clown me too hard on this, guys. Give this a shot and see what happens. So, you know, if I'm driving Project CB9 and the steering wheel is dead straight and the car is tracking straight, I'm gonna be happy. So if that's the case, we're gonna go ahead and replace these 2 tires with the new tires we got waiting. because we've got brand new tires on the backside because those things were the wrong size and they were heavily dry rotted. So we'll have a matching set of brand new tires in this car pretty soon. Okay, let's go ahead, tighten up that nut on the inner tie rod. We'll replace the brake pad, and then we'll go ahead and put the brake caliper back in position and tighten up the two 14mm bolts, top and bottom. So let me take care of that. We'll jump to the other side. Okay, so I went ahead and set up the passenger side with the jack stands and the string line. So I made sure that I'm square on the back tire here. So you take your measuring tape to the string, do a check. It's about 8 1/16, maybe 8 1/8. And then go to the front lip of the wheel. It's about 8 1/16, 8 1/8. So this is somewhat straight. So let me show you what's going on with the front here. Went ahead and removed the caliper and the brake pad so we have straight access to the rotor here. Okay, starting with the rear side of the rotor on the passenger side, it's between 10 1/4 and 10 3/8. Let's go ahead and check the front side of the rotor, and that's about 10 1/16 right there. So we need to go ahead and get that front rotor and make it point that way right there. So let me go ahead and take care of that. All right, status update on the DIY alignment passenger side. So let's go ahead and take the tape measure and measure from the back side of the rotor. Got 10 1/2 inches right there. Let's go ahead and take that tape measure to the front side of the rotor, and we got 10 1/2 inches right there. So I think we're in spec, at least for a DIY string alignment. I'm not sure how it's gonna work. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take this nut, tighten it up against this tie rod right here, and make sure that thing's snug and tight. And then we'll go ahead, take our brake pad, put it back in position, and then our caliper with the two 14mm bolts, tighten things up, put the wheels and tires in place, jack it up, remove the jack stands, and we should be in business. So we'll see what happens when we take this thing for a test drive. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. So I have no clue of how this string alignment's gonna be, but I just don't wanna drop 100, 150 bucks on a custom alignment because I'm still dialing in alignment on Project CB9. All right, enough talking. Let's just go ahead and put things back together. All right, guys, wide open road, not much traffic. And check out, the steering wheel is straight and this car is tracking straight. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that do-it-yourself string alignment tool. I had low hopes of that tactic, and sure enough, it works. But you know, if you guys have some expensive tires, I wouldn't rely on that. But if you're just looking to get by with a simple alignment, I guess the string alignment does the trick. So, I mean, here it is. I mean, straight wheel, straight ahead. I mean, this car is not pulling to the right. And the car's, you know, steering wheel is basically straight. And I mean, this car is tracking straight. So I'm actually pretty impressed. All right, guys, let me go ahead and focus back on the road here. All right, now that I'm pretty comfortable with the do-it-yourself alignment end results with CB9 tracking straight, I think we're gonna go ahead and replace the front tires. So let me show you what's going on with these old tires. So particularly on the inside shoulder right there, I mean, just look at the rubber right there. I mean, it's basically almost ripping this tire. So this tire is in really bad shape. Again, these tires are really old. Let's go ahead and see if we can see a date code on this thing. These tires were made the 40th week of 2012. Wow, these things are really old. All right, let's go ahead and check the passenger tire. All right, let's take a closer look at the passenger tire. As you can see, inside shoulder is wearing pretty bad. Rubber starting to crack right there. A lot of stress from the toe in. And these tires were built the 27th week of 2015. So these tires are pretty old, but not as old as the driver's side ones. Let me go ahead and show you guys what we're putting on here. All right, guys, I'm not sure if you've watched the previous video. We went ahead and put these tires on the back side of Project CB9. So again, these are some inexpensive tires I got for a phenomenal deal. I think they were like 40 bucks each. Anyways, Otsu 205 5016, which is the correct size for BB6 Prelude wheels. Made in Indonesia, manufacturing date 37th week of 2021. These tires are gonna be much newer than what was on Project CB9, so I'm gonna have a lot more confidence once these front tires are mounted onto Project CB9. So I'm gonna go ahead, load up the BB6 wheels and tires in the truck bed along with the new tires. And I think the tire shop locally charges 20 bucks each for mounting and balancing. And I dispose of the tires myself because my local dump actually takes tires. All right, let's go ahead and get these things mounted and balanced up at the local tire shop. Alrighty guys, that wraps up today's video on Project CB9, and we got 3 major things accomplished for that car. First things first, we were able to torque the adjustable ball joint from SPC to 120 foot-pounds, which is what SPC requires. And number 2, the do-it-yourself alignment. I wasn't expecting positive results, at the end of the day, but sure enough, when I took Project CB9 on the road for the first time, I mean, that car was just tracking straight and it wasn't pulling to the right, so I'm actually blown away at the end results. So just go ahead and take your time when you're taking your measurements, and hopefully you'll have the same results as well. And number 3, brand new tires on the front of Project CB9. So now Project CB9 has 4 brand new tires, and I have some peace of mind driving this car on the road now. Anyhow, we got some more updates coming for Project CB9. Hope you guys can stay tuned. And if you found this video helpful or entertaining, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic day.